SPM.
Yes.
It's your turn to go.
Okay, I thought I was going to hear the advert first.
No. Just shoot after 2 seconds. Shoot.
Etepu, Sanbonani, Moweni, Salam, Namaste, and Vanakkam. Welcome to This is Africa, produced and presented by your host, Shabnam Palesa Mohammed for Capital Radio, Saturdays from 3 to 6 p.m., broadcasting live from Tegwini, Durban, KZN, South Africa. Of course, my co-pilot on technical production is the fabulous Toki Mohoto, of course, Capital Radio, your feel-good, think smart radio station. Why is the show called This is Africa? Well, we're not born in Africa. Africa is born in us. Kwame Nkrumah. Therefore, it's Saturday, the 9th of January, 2020. And we've got 5 segments to today's show. They're vibrant, they're informative, they're empowering. We may even have some fun. You can join us by listening live via the Capital Radio website or the Capital Radio Radio Garden app. You can watch via Capital Radio's YouTube channel or Facebook page. And of course, Mixcloud is a great app you need to download. You can also watch via Instagram. And these are the many ways in which you can join the conversation today. So in our 5 segments today, in our first segment, we'll be talking to Selvan Naidoo about his new book on the life of a legendary golfer, Papa Sugalam. In Art Matter, we talk to Nanda Sewin about being the first cartoonist in South Africa to do a cartoon on ivermectin. In the third segment of our show called we're talking to Zodwa Dlamini, a rape survivor and now author, about her experience. In the Agents of Change, we're talking to Kosar Davids and Dr. Dina Periachi about ivermectin as a survivor and as a medical professional. And then in the final segment of our show, we talk to some bright young minds on their thoughts of tackling racism through writing. We're going to kick off the show with some music, and it's going to be 2 tracks, 7 Seconds by Yusuindu and Just Cruising by Goldfish. When we come back, we'll be in conversation with Selvan Naidoo. Don't go anywhere.
We're off to a brilliant start, SPM.
Thank you. I thought we normally play our advert.
You'll forgive me for that. I saw that time had already eaten the 3 p.m. slot and I didn't want to waste any time.
Okay, but aren't these mics hot right now? Kajol said we can't use them to communicate.
You normally switch off the white mics and you leave on the gray ones. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay.
But to be on the safe side, just continue enjoying the music. And I see your guest has also joined in. Continue joining the 2 tracks, and when they are done, I'll give you a tip or a heads up so that you continue with your conversation.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Sip on some masala chai, please, and get better.
I'll try.
All right, yes.
Oh, my friend.
Why don't you share some masala to me as well?
Hello, Selvan Naidoo. How are you?
Well, thanks, Shabjam. How are you?
Good, thank you. We're just playing some music. Toki, can we hear the music? Are you sure it's not us that's hot?
I'll be waiting. It's not a second, 7 seconds away, or just as long as I stay. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. J'assume les raisons qui nous poussent de changer tout. J'aimerais qu'on oublie le boulot pour qu'ils espèrent. Beaucoup de sentiments, de race qu'il faut qu'ils désespèrent. Je veux les gamins ouverts, des amis pour parler de leur peine, de leur joie pour qu'ils le vivent. Des infos qui ne divisent pas. Changer. 7 seconds away. Just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. It's not a second, we're 7 seconds away. Or just as long as I stay, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. I'll be
Capital 88.1 FM. Anything else is a compromise. Capital 88.1 FM.
7 years beyond 2,000 years, we just cruising. This is music that's been traveling light years to grace your ears, we just cruising. I'm just thinking to myself, you know there's no one here to help. I'll try and think a plan up on my own, but I could never fix this all alone. Just cruising. If you never do a thing, just cruising. There's always something you can bring. Just cruising. If you cats look at the king, just cruising. That's right, you just cruising through. You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. The talk is not enough, you believe the lie. You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. The talk is not enough, you believe the lie. Come on, stand up, get involved. Everyone together, problem solved. But if you stay there on your own, you know it's cold and lonely in the drone. You just cruise, you just keep cruising through. You just cruise, that's all you ever seem to do. You just cruise, you got your little picket fence. You just cruise, but it won't come to your defense. You just cruise, and when the water starts to rise, and now you acting all surprised. That's right, you just cruising through. You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. The talk is not enough, you believe the lie. You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. But talk is not enough, you believe the lie.
Palisa,
Yes.
you have about a minute left.
All right. Maybe just play the Capital Radio sting so then we can start.
All right, do you want to hear it first before you start?
Yeah, is that short one?
The song is just a minute before it finishes off. You want me to end the song?
Okay.
Let's leave it till it finishes, and then you'll continue as it continues, as it ends. Excuse me.
All right.
All right. So you have about 40 seconds left. Cheers.
Thank you.
You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. The talk is not enough, you believe the lie. You give a lot of love, but you don't know why. The revolution stops if you walk on by. You give a lot of love, it'll get you high. The talk is not enough, you believe the lie.
Welcome back to This is Africa with Shabnam Palesa Mohammed on Capital Radio. We've been listening to 7 Seconds by Yuso Indo and Just Cruising by Goldfish. Some beautiful tracks to get the first segment of our show off today, which is called Africa Unite. And my very special guest is Salvin Naidu. Welcome to This is Africa.
Thank you so much, Shabnam, and great to connect with you this afternoon.
Wonderful to have you on, Salvin. I'm going to ask you to do the honors of introducing yourself in 30 seconds or 3 sentences.
I'm an avid golfer that my wife hates me playing. I'm a father to two children, the curator of the 1860 Heritage Center, director there as well, and passionate about my country.
Wow, perfect introduction there. So first of all, congratulations on your book. Papua Sugulam is obviously a legend to so many people, but I think most of all for his courage in pursuing his passion for golf, because it wasn't just about his exemplary skills. It was having that courage to pursue that passion despite the odds. What is it that inspired you to write this book about him?
Look, I'm an avid golfer, and the story of Papua is not foregrounded in my time. It's foregrounded in the time of my father. And my father, introduced me to the world of books with a beautiful book on Basil D. Oliveira, and it was called Time to Declare. So that was the first book I read, and it was based on cricket, and so that's where my love for sport developed. But my dad was an avid sportsman, and in every home in Chatsworth, almost every home, there was golf clubs. God knows why, but there was golf clubs. And only years later, I realized why. It's because, my father's generation loved Papua, and Papua was that iconic hero to them. And, those golf clubs were symbolic. They were very symbolic about hope that their children could become Papua. Regrettably, I've not become a great golfer, and my wife's thankful because I don't have to spend a lot of money on buying equipment. But,
Right.
It's a very special story because I foregrounded myself and the history of Indian indenture within that, because when we look at Papua's life from 1928 to the time he died in 1978, it foregrounds a time in which Indian people in the country, especially of indentured ancestry, really, really struggled for that chaliced, better life that the ANC government is now speaking of in their conference. So, it's something that really pains me, but this is an incredibly sad story of someone that was denied at the height of his power, at the height of his peak, at the height of his form. So, it really is a tragic, tragic story. And my hope in telling the story is that my son, his son in the years ahead, is able to know Papua Sugulam, and Papua Sugulam walked before him. He sacrificed at the peak of his powers in 1965, having beaten Gary Player. And that's essentially when, his career was put to an end, because the nationalist government did not want him to continue beating their own. And so, that's for me the motivation behind writing the story.
Player denied. What was the experience like for you, Salvan? I mean, the inspiring moments as well as the painful moments in writing the story, in telling his story. What was it like for you?
Actually, one of the most painful and most satisfying moments for me was in 2018, I did the exhibition for the 1860 Heritage Center at Durban Country Club. And, when we opened the exhibition, Sumintra Sugulam, Papua's wife, was there. And, she was the first one to see the exhibition opening. And you could see the pain and hurt in her eyes. And while it was really, really destroying for me, like a son, seeing her mother, and her mother, Sumitra, is the same age as my mother. Someone that's completely destroyed because of the system of apartheid. But, there was a twinkle in her eye in seeing her handsome husband. So, that gave me a great deal of satisfaction. And I've dedicated this book to her memory. She's a sprightly 90-year-old plus woman. And, she's, you could see that sense of hurt etched in her eyes. And she was witness to her husband being denied. She was firsthand to that tragic denial. So that's so special in terms of her being able to see the book, her being able to see the exhibition. So it's very special.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly your work is so important at the 1860 Heritage Center, and now this book, creating and archiving this history for people to remember, for sons and daughters to remember what it was like where we are now and where we need to get to still. Selvan, if you were going to have a conversation with Papa Sugulum, what would you express? What would you ask him? And how do you think he might respond to the fame that he now has?
You know, from discussions with Rajan and from, just reading through the newspaper clippings, and of which we had hordes of newspaper clippings, Papa was a very humble person, and he was never bitter about what happened to him. And you get the same character trait with the family members. Rajan Sugulum's a very, very grounded person. So when you listen to them, the majority of us are extremely angry about what happened. And that doesn't happen with Rajan and company, and I sense that comes from Papa. All he wanted to do was play golf. So I would ask him, how he would be able to help me better my game. I'm still wanting to improve in golf.
Right.
So, that talent, that's phenomenal. For what Papa achieved as being a caddy, you must remember his introduction into golf was not the traditional route. He came through being a working class caddy and, learned the game by just observing, and very unorthodox. So, all that nonsense about coaching and orthodox methods and so on falls completely out of the door when you look at Papa, because he held the club the complete opposite to what contemporary and golfers today hold the club. So his grip was all the wrong way around. But, I would have a conversation as two things, how he'd be able to coach the youngsters, and two, how he really felt about being denied. I think he hit it very well, but, I'd really like to have a genuine conversation around how he really felt about it, and, how hurt he was by being denied at the height of his powers.
It seems from what we understand of his story and now from your book that he bottled a lot of those feelings in. And maybe that was his personality, or maybe it was, the culture at the time that men don't really express themselves. But certainly there would have been a lot of pain that he carried with him from this experience of knowing you've got this talent, but you're not recognized at being good enough. And, there's that iconic photograph of him sitting in his car and having something to eat that I don't think the pain of that will ever leave most of us. And certainly I think a conversation between the two of you would be very, very interesting. Have there been any films made about him? I know this is a little bit off topic, but it's a good question, isn't it? And perhaps they should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few sort of tinklings around, wanting to get a movie done. It hasn't come to fruition. Much like his career, and I write this in the book, much like his career, his sort of his commemoration, his place in South Africa is sort of mired. And, the fact there isn't a movie of this beautiful story of a rags to riches to rags story worries me, because, I really think it's an epic Hollywood blockbuster. But there are some people, and Rajan Sugulum is engaged with a company out in Cape Town, and there's a few other people that want to put together this movie. I'm sad that it hasn't come together as yet, and I hope in the near future that it does come to fruition. But more than just the movie, I think, more things need to happen, especially at Durban Country Club. There should be a bronze there, so that every golfer that walks past there remembers Papa Sugulum, the name of Papa Sugulum. And we want something that's visible, something that's tangible, something that touches the emotion of the golfer that walks past there, knowing the greatness of Papa Sugulum, who was denied at the height of his powers.
Absolutely. I mean, first, that documentary or that film, even if it's, fiction based on facts, is critically important. I mean, we need these sporting heroes. We need them to record our history. We need it for memory, because memory is a weapon. We need it for inspiration. And I'm really shocked that hasn't happened as yet. But I'm hoping that it will. Hoping maybe 2021 will be the year where that circle or the wheel turns a lot quicker. No time like the present. But coming to what you were saying just now about having a monument to him at the Durban Country Club, it hasn't happened yet. And I know there's been an initiative to put a picture up of him at the golf club. What is happening? Is there going to be a picture? Is there going to be a bronze? And how do people get involved to help that happen?
Look, I write about this in the book, and I speak about wave after wave of administration. And I think unintentionally as well. They tried to move beyond that hurtful episode of Papa being presented the trophy in the rain. And I think administration after administration has tried to do something. In fact, there was talk of being an exclusive exhibition there, which I think Rajan is having a discussion with the board in the near future. There are a few pictures. There's obviously the plaque, and I think unintentional by Durban Country Club, really. The plaque is sort of faded and not in the greatest of position because, it faces the 18th green, and sadly, because of the sun, it's sort of faded. So, people don't notice this when they walk past. And then there's like about 2 or 3 frames in the corridors, but not of the 1963 Open when he played in the South African Open. So I think there needs to be something a lot more tangible. Durban Country Club is a sort of very black tie, fair, colonial place. You feel uncomfortable going there. I mean, as a Chatsworth boy, when I first started going to places like Durban Country Club and so on, I felt intimidated,
Right.
And so going there and now not seeing, Papa Siugulam where he ought to be and a lot more visible is something that I think will augur well for the future generations, my father's generation, in being able to move beyond that. And I doubt whether we'll actually be able to move beyond that hurt because, 26 years into our democracy, we're still finding out things. We're still discovering. We're still expecting the previous government to become or to be held account for what has happened. And I think not to the extent of, retribution. I think for the process of healing. And, especially when it comes to Papa Siugulam, as I said, the fact that his sort of commemoration has not been as sort of intense as many other people, I think it's something that we need to bring to the highlight.
Absolutely agree with you. And I wanted to touch very quickly on, I was going to ask you to read a paragraph from your book, but we're going to run out of time. Can I ask you to hold it up if you've got a copy there with you?
Regrettably, I'm at a Central Venue and I don't have a copy of it, so I will share it, but
right.
It's available. It's available on Made in Chatsworth.
Madeinchatsworth.co.za is where you can get this book on Papa Siugulam Player Denied. And I know it's been a very unusual and it's still a very busy and a fruitful year for the 1860 Heritage Centre. And I think we'll have to have another conversation about what last year has been like for the 1860 Heritage Centre and what you have coming up this year. You want to quickly mention one thing you've got coming up for this year?
Oh, there's a whole host of things, but we want to keep the audience in check and make sure that they come back to the 1860 Heritage Centre. One of those programs, and you know very well about it, someone who you've admired tremendously and someone who I believe that should have been given more and more highlight, and that's doing a commemoration on Ma'am Fatima Mir. And I've asked you to be the program director for that, so I'm looking forward to that and sharing that with our children and the community of South Africa in paying tribute to a true people's hero.
Absolutely, and Umanla to that. Salvan Naidu, we're going to be playing you out with Maratu Malay, also called Master Nazaro with Sushila Raman, especially selected for you. I think you're going to be enjoying it. Thank you very much for joining us on the Africa Unite segment of This Is Africa. And when we come back, we'll be in conversation with political cartoonist Dr. Nanda Subin on his Ivermectin cartoon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The Feel Good Station, Capital 88.1 FM.
Thanks so much.
साकी की हर निगाह पे बल खा के पी गया लहरों से खेलता हुआ लहरा के पी हर खता मुआफ मैं इंतहाए शौक से घबरा के पी गया
மருதுமலை மாமணியே முருகையா தேவரின் குளில் காக்கும் வேலையா ஐயா மருதுமலை மாமணியே முருகையா தேவரின் குளில் காக்கும் வேலையா ஐயா மனமிகு சந்தனம் அழகிய குங்குமம் மனமிகு சந்தனம் அழகிய குங்குமம் ஐயா உனது மங்கள மந்திரமே மருதமலை மாமணியே முருகையா தேவரின் குளிர் காதும் வேலையா ஐயா மருதமலை மாமணியே முருகையா தேவரின் குளிர் காக்கும் வேலையா ஐயா
मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए मस्त नजरों से अल्लाह बचाए जमालों से अल्लाह बचाए हर बला सर पे आ जाए लेकिन हर बला सर पे आ जाए लेकिन उसने वालों से अल्लाह बचाए हर बला सर पे आ जाए लेकिन उसने वालों से अल्लाह
சக்திக் திருமுகமுத்துக்கும் மலனை மறவேன் நான் மறுவேன் பக்தி கடல பற்றி பெருகிட வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் சக்தி திருமுகமுத்துக்கும் மலனை மறவேன் நான் மறுவேன் பக்தி கடல பற்றி பெருகிட வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் நான் வருவேன் பலமணி திருமகனே அழகிய தமிழ் மகனே பலமணி திருமகனே அழகிய தமிழ் மகனே காண்பதெல்லாம் உனது மகம் ஆடு முகம் காணமலாம் எனது மனம் உருகுது முருகா காண்பதெல்லாம் எனது மகம் ஆடு முகம் காணமலாம் உனது மனம் உருகுது முருகா பணியாத மழையாத நதியாத கதலாத சகலம் உலகது கருணையில் எழுவது பணியாத மழையாத நதியாத கதலாத சகலம் உலகொரு கருணையில் எழுவது வருவா முகனே
इनकी मासूमियत पर न जाना इनके धोखे में हर किसी न आना इनकी मासूमियत पर न जाना इनके धोखे में हर किसी न आना इनकी मासूमियत पर न जाना इनके धोखे में हर किसी न आना इनकी मासूमियत पर न जाना इनके धोखे में हर किसी न आना लूट लेते हैं ये मुस्कुरा कर लूट लेते हैं ये मुस्कुरा कर इनकी चालों से अल्लाह बचाए लूट लेते हैं ये मुस्कुरा कर इनकी चालों से अल्लाह बचाए लूट लेते हैं ये मुस्कुरा कर इनकी चालों से अल्लाह बचाए
As I said, Doc hasn't come in yet, but I can see that you are there and you're active. I'm not sure what password he means, but I don't know. So your track has about a minute left. It was 6 minutes long. Doc's delay helped us play the entirety of Bollywood. You-
Welcome back to This is Africa on Capital Radio. And I think we're live. And we're just waiting for Dr. Nanda Subin to join us on the Arts Matter segment of our show today. And what we were listening to just before we went away was Maratu Malay, remix with Master Nazaro by the iconic Sushila Raman. We're just waiting for Dr. Nanda Subin to join us in the Arts Matter segment to talk about his ivermectin cartoon, of course, the big subject in South Africa currently and around the world, actually. And of course, Nanda Subin being the first off the mark in terms of our political cartoonist to do a cartoon on ivermectin. And he seems to be struggling a little bit with the link. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mahoto, our technical producer, to play us some music. Let's listen to Paradise Road by Joy. And when we come back, we'll be in conversation with Dr. Nanda Subin.
capitalradio.co.za. Everywhere you go.
Come with me down Paradise Road. This way, please. I'll carry your load. This you won't believe. Come with me
SPM.
Welcome back to This is Africa on Capital Radio. Just having some technical difficulties with Dr. Nanda Subban. What we're going to do right now is play one more track, and perhaps what we'll have to do is a telephonic interview instead of the video interview that we were planning. So I'm going to ask our technical producer to play for us Fire is Low by Freshly Ground. And if we don't have Nanda Subban back by then, we'll do Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba. Enjoy the music. We'll be right back.
Lines are now open on 087 702 0485. Email us at onair@capitalradio.co.za. Capital 88.1 FM. Anything?
Be my,
You want me to clap it?
my
Oh,
love.
they have. Yeah, I'm sure. No, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure at all.
Be my love when the fire is low. Be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire. Be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire. Have a wonderful time, but don't forget to write to me. Be like the swallows and remember home as a loving tree. I found silence is best enjoyed with an open heart beating next to you. But for now, be my darling and whisper your words to the rolling moon, rolling moon. And be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire. Be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire is low. Bear in mind the words of strangers may lead you astray from everything you knew was true. Every corner of tomorrow may provoke a sorrow hiding in the blue. But for now, hide your worries in the very heart of the moon, of the rolling moon. And be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire. Be my love when the fire is low, when the fire is low, when the fire is low.
Been telephonically to have this interview with him because it's such an important conversation. So we hope you've enjoyed Paradise Road by Joy and Fire is Low by Freshly Ground. But in the Arts Matters segment today, we're talking to Dr. Nanda Subban, who's of course a world-renowned and award-winning historian, political cartoonist, and artist. Welcome to This is Africa. Thank you for joining us today. All right, so Dr. Subban, you've done a cartoon, the first South African cartoon on ivermectin, which is, of course, par for the course with you having the courage to take on sometimes or often controversial issues, but seeing the truth behind the veil. So let's start here. Why did you choose to do this first South African cartoon on ivermectin? Okay, I want to get to your ARV cartoon in a second. I see people are saying they're unable to hear you very clearly, so I'm going to summarize what you said, and perhaps we can try a call from the studio instead if Toki can let me know. But basically, you're saying that you know that the drug is working. It was being used or is being used in India, in Brazil, in other countries around the world, and people are dying. The drug should actually be used because there is research to actually prove that ivermectin is working. Why do people need to die? So this concept that you've got of this particular cartoon that you did, how did you arrive at this concept, and can you take us through the visual? All right. So you're saying it's the same story. He's basically saying it's the same story all over again. Toki, if you can please locate Dr. Nanda Subin's phone number so we can give him a call, that would be really great from the studio. But basically, what he's saying is it's the same issue as what happened with the ARVs. And yes, there are side effects, like with any medication. To be quite honest, I don't know of many people who have taken or who've not taken or taken a medication and not have had a particular side effects. So of course, that's being used to put people off. And I see a phone call is coming through there for me. I'm not sure who's trying to reach me right now. But I want to talk about your cartoons on the ARVs, Dr. Subin, because you were also one of those cartoonists that did cartoons on ARVs. And I think those were really important as well. So I think Toki is trying to call you on your mobile. Are you seeing that call coming through?
The number you have called is not available on the MTN network.
All right, I think he might be calling you on your WhatsApp number instead of your mobile number. But in the meantime, can you just run us through your cartoons on ARVs that you did at least 20 years ago? How does it compare to what's happening now? All right. So you did a couple of cartoons on ARVs, basically for access to ARVs, which were being blocked at the time by the government. What were the responses like to your cartoons? Yes. Yes, I read. I remember that at the time. I remember that at the time. There was so much of disinformation about ARVs that we had to go to court. The treatment action campaign led by people like Zaki Ahmed had to go to court for government to agree to give us the ARVs. And it looks like that's exactly where we're headed with ivermectin, Dr. Subin. So here's a political cartoonist who remembers what the struggle was like to secure ARVs for our country in terms of Section 27 of our Constitution, and is seeing it happen all over again with ivermectin. All right, I think that would be great for you to post those cartoons to the Sahari page so people can see historically what is going on. And I'm still getting calls coming through, but do you know anyone who's recovered after taking ivermectin? All right, so Dr. Subin, of course, knows people personally who's taken ivermectin with no side effects. And if there was a side effect, then it's probably mild, like a headache. But having said that, all medications almost all have side effects and should be taken, especially scheduled medication, under the supervision of a medical professional. But of course, that's not being allowed because of the criminalizing of our healthcare professionals. One last question for you. What are your thoughts, Dr. Subin, on the censorship surrounding ivermectin, whether it's on Facebook or in public discourse? What is your thoughts on censorship? Well, maybe that's what's going to happen next. Maybe we are going to see turmeric being banned because most of us swear by it and it is scientifically proven. But the censorship certainly is a ridiculous issue. One is not even able to discuss alternatives or development in medicine. Thank you, Dr. Nanda Subin, for joining us. We'll have to bring you back to the show, minus the technical difficulties. And I believe Toki wants to play you out with, let's just have a look. He wants to, I beg your pardon? Well, I don't know if he's got it on his playlist. Actually, we did play Stevie Wonder's Overjoyed a couple of weeks back, one of your favorite songs in reminder of you. I don't know if he has it on track, but he's going to be playing Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba. Thank you very much for joining us in conversation today, Dr. Nanda Subin, political cartoonist there. And when we come back, we'll be talking to Zodwa Dlamini, who is a survivor of multiple experiences of rape and decided to write a book telling her story. We'll be listening to Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Streaming live worldwide on capitalradio.co.za. This is Capital 88.1 FM. station.
Capital 88.1 FM.
All along the river, Chelmsford's army lay asleep. Come to crush the children of Mageba, come to exact the realm's price for peace. And in the morning, as they saddled up to ride, their eyes shone with the fire and the steel. The general told them of the task that lay ahead, to bring the people of the sky to heal. Mud and sweat on polished leather, warm rain seeping to the bone. They rode through the season's wet weather, straining for a glimpse of the foe. Hopeless battalion, destined to die, broken by the benders of kings. Vainglorious general, Victorian pride, would cost him and 800 men their lives. They came to the side of a mountain. Scouts rode out to spy the land. Even as the realm soldiers lay resting, Macabe's forces were soon at hand. And by the evening, the vultures were wheeling above the ruins where the fallen lay. An ancient song as
Palesa,
Yebo.
there's about a minute left, and it's already 1600 hours on the studio clock, but it's 15:58 on the normal time. What do you want me to do? Leave Impy to finish off?
I think we can, yeah, that's fine. And we can go straight to the guest.
All right, listen to the music. As soon as the song ends, you'll be ready to talk with Zodwa. I see Zodwa is there online as well.
Sure.
Sure, cheers.
Welcome back to This is Africa with Shabnam Pilesa Muhammad on Capital Radio. And we've been listening to Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba and Impi by, And we've been listening to Impi by Johnny Clegg. I hope you've been enjoying the music. In the next segment of our show called Womandla, we're in conversation with Zodwa Dlamini, who's of course a survivor of multiple experiences of rape and is now an author. Zodwa Dlamini, welcome to This Is Africa.
Thank you so much, Shabnam. Thank you, Palisa. Thank you to all the crew there in studio.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to finally have you on. I know you've recovered from the flu, I believe, that you had. So we're glad that you're feeling better, and we're looking forward to having this conversation with you. Now, Zodwa, your book speaks, or it shares, because you're very much that kind of person who shares your pain at experiences of multiple rape. Can you share with us the highlights? I know we don't have much time, it's just 15 minutes, but the highlights of the story that nobody should have to go through anywhere in the world.
Thank you so much, Palisa, and thank you to the listeners. I greet you all in afternoon of a Saturday. And basically, yes, you are right, Palisa. I'm not proud, honestly, of talking about such. But when you look in terms of what is actually happening in the nation, you realize a need for one to actually talk about this. Basically, the story goes like I was raped twice by the men that were working at in my parents' general dealer. That was on different times. The second one was when I was a teenager and I was raped by a very high-ranking official in Umlazi, a very prominent person in Umlazi. I was about 14, 15 years at the time, and I was raped by the rapist in Newcastle. That one was very fortunate because I managed to cut, his penis. And I truly regard myself as a herald for that incident. And I was also abducted by a taxi boss for a period of 2 weeks. And every time he would come into the room where he had locked me with everybody that was there in the house, nobody rescued me. Even women that were there never rescued me. And it was for a period of 2 weeks. And he took me back simply because I was sick to death. That is when he actually released me. And the very one that was so scary for me when I thought everything was over was when the serial killer, took me at the gate where I was staying in Johannesburg, and he actually showed me the bodies of his victims. And for that, honestly, I count myself as a blessed woman to be alive, when there is somebody who, for the first time, he gets raped and gets killed. But for me, it was on numerous occasions, even when I was married, and I was married with a lovely husband, because it's not all men that rape. And I was sexually harassed at work where I was.
I mean, that is an incredible story, Zodwa, to have gone through so much from childhood into adulthood, and this entitlement that these men, you're quite right, it's not all men, that these men felt to you, to your body, I wouldn't say to your dignity, because your dignity is your own. And of course, having escaped a serial rapist and killer, I mean, that is just an incredible story, and nobody should ever have to go through it. But your book is also a celebration of courage in triumphing these experiences. What is it that made you want to write a book that's not only about pain, but is also about victory?
To be honest, Palisa, I've struggled so much for years wanting to write this book, and it never sufficed. I would write, put it on journals, lose those documents, up until I was afforded with computer, and I could now, put a few of the thoughts that would come into my mind. And I must say, Cyril Palani has helped me a lot, because I managed to write that my family life. I managed to write that life as a domestic worker. But when it comes to sexual abuse, actual ordeals. Oh, I'm telling you, I would write just snippets. And he helped me because he gave me a lot of strength, and he was taking me through the writing. You know, he would assist me so much, so much, so much. And I must be honest, I'm very grateful. But basically, the book is the aim is to give hope to every woman out there, to every child out there, parents out there, even the perpetrator himself, because I am talking to the perpetrator as well, to say, if you think you are useless, you are never a useless person. There is life. Even though you are a perpetrator, you can still change and become a better person. So I've seen a lot of people, especially women, with low self-esteem. And when I track, because I'm very much interested and I've developed that sense now of identifying people that were abused. And I would see people, most of them, they never find a way out of these experiences. They get so despaired, they get crushed, they never make it in life, some of them, even if they make it, but they still live with a bleeding. They've got wounds that are bleeding, that are never healed.
Absolutely. I mean, I've survived experiences myself, nowhere near what it is that you survived, and I can certainly testify to the fact that it's really difficult to take yourself to the point where when you say, I'm going to do something with this experience. I'm going to educate and empower other people so that they know they're not alone. Renate Advocat, watching the show today, says, great program. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
So, you're now a published author. What is that like, and how are people responding to you? I'm sure it makes you feel a great sense of relief all these years later.
Shabnam, I must be honest, I've gone through a lot of feelings in my life. I've gone through a lot of stages whereby many, 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 many feelings. At first, I had that determination to write, and as I've spoken to you, it wouldn't happen, but finally it happened. I've been excited, very excited, finally excited to say at least there is a book. I'm now an author, as you have already mentioned. I've developed such a sense of satisfaction. I'm so fulfilled in my life. It's like there's a burden that has been taken off my shoulders, because now the experiences are no longer in my thoughts, but now they are in paper, meaning there is some put down that has happened in me, I'm no longer carrying the pain. I'm no longer carrying the wounds. Yes, in thinking, but most of the things are now in the book. I've been very much anxious, particularly to say, okay, you've written the book, but who's going to read the book? Who are your readers? And there was a sense of frustration to say, oh my goodness, I just wonder if it will make it, because every author, I'm sure, authors that are listening, they know for sure that there's nobody who wants to write a book to become a black and white elephant in the cupboard or online there without anybody purchasing it. So it's been different feelings, honestly, but I am excited, even though I don't want to get lost into the excitement, because I still feel there's still a lot that I need to write.
Of course, so the first time I met you was at the launch of Turning Point for Men, which was launched by Cyril Palani, of course, who's been hugely supportive with your book and is very much on the front of this campaign that we wage against gender-based violence. And I remember hearing your story, and like everyone in the room, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, because I think everybody felt some of that pain that you'd experienced, but it was also hugely inspired by your attitude too, in that I'm going to share my story so that I can help other people. And certainly, I'm sure your book is making a huge impact on people that are reading it. Do you have the book there with you? I'd love for you to hold it up so that we'll be able to, our viewers will be, I know there was an issue with the printer. I remember you mentioned there was an issue with the printer, but nevertheless, what is your message and your advice to people who are experiencing any form of gender-based violence? And we know it comes in multiple forms, Zodwa. So, I mean, there is sexual, there's physical, there's verbal, there's psychological, there's stalking and intimidation, there's economic, there's all these different forms of gender-based violence that are experienced predominantly by women, but there are men also who experience gender-based violence. So what is your message and your advice to these people?
What I can say to everyone who has encountered what I have encountered, whether lesser or more, I would say, firstly, it was not your mistake. It was never your mistake. You never invited this. You never planned this to happen in your life. You happened to be in a right place with the wrong person, or you happen to be in a wrong place with the wrong person, And I just want you, if you are listening, to develop that sense of hope in your life, to say, please don't despair. You are not crushed. As long as you still have breath, you can still make a difference in your life. I want you to look at your situation and testify that you are not alone. I mean, you are listening to somebody who has had a number of ordeals, and that on its own is an evidence that you are not alone. And I want you to be encouraged and be assured of your breakthrough. And your breakthrough is in your hands, is in your head, is in your mouth, because it is only you who can escape the torment that you are going through currently. And unleash your potential while you are still pursuing your destiny. I want to say to, I don't want to call them victims, honestly, but, well, for the lack of a better word, I want to say be activated and be strengthened. Yes, survivors, yes. Triumphants, overcomers as well. I want to say you need to find your greatness right inside that pain. You need to navigate through that pain and come out and become a strong person that never lived before. And I want to say, be intentional about your healing, because it's very, very important that you are healed, because in most cases, some people, they say, no, I'm fine, but they know very well that they are bleeding. Some are bleeding right in the boardroom. Some are bleeding right in parliament. They are building as managers that are managing people, but be intentional about finding healing for yourself.
Absolutely. Such profound words there from Zorba Dlamini. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, it's almost as if it's a continuum where you're a victim at the point where you've had this experience, but you haven't started this process of healing. And then you're a survivor where you've started this process of healing and you understand that it wasn't your fault, and you reclaim your sense of power. But you're a thriver. So it's from victim to survivor to thriver. You're a thriver where you take your experience and use it to help other people. What do you think of this continuum of experience in terms of gender-based violence?
Come again. What's your question, Shabnam?
This continuum from victim to survivor to thriver. Do you think it's a continuum of experience that one needs to go through, and it's a good way of thinking about it, so you're not stuck in victim all the time?
That is very, very true. It depends what is inside of you, whether you are intentionally want to navigate through a process of being a victor, but you have to go through, you will go through those stages. And it also depends in terms of the support, because some of the people, they've spoken about their ordeals, some they haven't. And on behalf of those that have not spoken, here we are speaking about what has happened in our lives, basically. So it must give them a strength to say, I am going to speak out, even if I don't speak out now, but later in life, I definitely will. Sometimes they may start at a smaller scale, talking to Zodwa, talking to so-and-so, talking to Palisa, in trying to lessen the burden, because it becomes too heavy in life to carry. Yeah, I would say it's very much a process that one goes through. It depends who is around you to give you support, and if you are prepared and willing to embrace the support and every word that is spoken to you that seek to take you out of the prison walls of fear, of despair, of discouragement, and all these other negative feelings that one present with when you have had such an experience.
Of course, it's important to break down those prison walls so you move from victim to survivor to victor.
Very
All
true.
right, last question for you very quickly, Zodwa. Any idea when your books might be ready? And when they are ready, will we find an announcement on your Facebook page? And also, how would one get hold of it? Is there a website?
Okay, basically, I believe strongly that myself and Cyril Kalani, we are working on it. And by next week, it must be out. I believe by Friday, it will be out. It will be found online on Amazon.com, obviously. And we are still trying to get it on the shelves of exclusive books because they don't have a one of the kind. And it will be also sold. There will be pre-orders that I'm going to share, a pre-order a poster once it is ready, because I must have a book with me for the pre-order poster, basically. And I will be having ambassadors that will be selling the book in Africa and in South Africa and overseas.
Absolutely amazing, Zodwa. I'm so proud of you and honored to know you. Thank you for sharing your experience with the world, and Womandla to you.
Thank you, Womandla, Palisa, thank you, and the listener.
Yes. All right, so we've been in conversation with Zodwa Dlamini, and we will be playing her out with 3 tracks. It's going to be I'm Every Woman by Whitney Houston, Your Eyes by Shakina, and Lifted by the Lighthouse Family. When we come back in Agents of Change, we'll be talking to Kosar Davids, who's taken the ivermectin treatment and has recovered, as well as Dr. Dina Pediachi on his thoughts on the role of doctors in society. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the song break.
Lines are now open on 087 702 0485.
Whatever you want, whatever you need, anything you want done, baby, I'll do it naturally. 'Cause I'm every woman, it's all in me. It's all in me. You can tell, makes a special groove with fire inside of you. Anytime you feel danger or fear, then instantly
forever in your life. If I could stay, the apple of your eye, yeah, I would pray. No surprise when it's you and I could spend a decade based on lies. If I could stay forever in your lives, yeah, I don't do well with change, and I'm so sure of your play. Your eyes change color when you lie. I can see it, I'm not blind, yeah. Your eyes, your eyes, your eyes, yeah. Your eyes, they sparkle in the light, but in the dark, I see the true colors of your heart. Your eyes, your eyes, your eyes, yeah. Can't deny just what I'm feeling. All through the dirt, you know I'm keeping you, not leaving you. You make things up, but there's no reason. Into my eyes, you keep repeating them. See, I don't know how I could leave when your love was surely season meaning, yeah. And although it's no excuse, believe me, and I hope it don't come too easy, yeah. Easy, yeah. Easy, yeah. Your eyes change color when you lie. I can see it, I'm not blind, yeah. Your eyes, your eyes, your eyes, yeah. Your eyes, they sparkle in the light, but in the dark, I see the true colors of your heart. Your eyes, your eyes, your eyes, yeah. They say you love me, there's no one above me. They say I'm pretty, I don't need no makeup. Your eyes, they tell a million lies. Your eyes, yeah. They say you love me, there's no one above me. They say I'm pretty, I don't need no makeup. Your eyes, they tell a million lies. Your eyes, yeah. Say they lie, boy, they lie. You ain't gotta try, don't try. I know this is love. 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 I know this is love, yeah. I know this is love, yeah.
Find us on Radio Garden and sit back and enjoy.
I really love to be alone without all the ache and pain and the April showers. But it ain't long before I long for you, like a ray of hope coming through the blue. When it all gets darker, then the whole thing falls apart, I guess. It doesn't really matter about the rain, 'cause we'll get through it anyway. We'll get up and start again, 'cause we could be lifted, lifted, lifted. We could be lifted. undisturbable, the peace we found in a bright blue space up above the clouds, where everything is understandable. You don't have to say anything too loud. When our luck runs out again, we're all back down to solid ground. I wouldn't say I'm mad about the rain, but we'll get through it anyway. We'll get back to the start again. 'Cause we could be lifting, lifting, lifting. We could be lifted from the shadow. Lifted, oh, we could be lifted up today, lifted all the way. You and I forever, baby, lifted. Oh, we could be lifted. We could be lifted. Hey, yeah.
Welcome back to This is Africa on Capital Radio with your host Shabnam Peleza Mohammed, and we've been listening to some really good music. It's been I'm Every Woman by Whitney Houston, Your Eyes by Shakina, and Lifted by the Lighthouse Family. In Womandla, of course, we were in conversation with Zodwa Dlamini. In Agents of Change, we are talking to Kausar Davids and Dr. Dina Padiachi, and I'm going to ask him to put his camera on for us. And we'll be talking about Kausar's experience taking ivermectin, as well as Dr. Dina Padiachi's views on what is the role of a medical professional. Dr. Dina Padiachi, thank you for joining us today on This is Africa.
Thanks for the invitation, Shabnam.
It's an honor to have you on, and I see that Kausar is just connecting to audio, so we'll just give her a second to connect with us there before we're having this very important conversation in the Agents of Change segment. Assalamu alaikum, Kausar, and welcome to This is Africa. Can you hear me? All right, I think she's still trying to link into the audio there. I'm sure it should be sorted out in a second. If you're watching us on one of our other platforms, it appears as if the Facebook Live has gone down, but you can catch us on Mixcloud, on Instagram, on the Capital Radio website, etc. So do have a listen to us there. Kausar, can you hear us now?
I can most certainly hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us on This is Africa.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the awareness and the platform, and obviously the opportunity that you're giving me to create the awareness. So I must say, I must greet everybody with the universal greeting of peace in Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي.
Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Pariachi, you've disappeared for a second there, but let's start off with Kausar. Take us through your experience of COVID before you took the ivermectin.
So Alhamdulillah, it has been a rough journey. Like I've made mention in my video, I was the youngest in all the wards. I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to make mention of the hospital that I was in, but I was in the private sector hospital, Melamed. I don't have any issues with the hospital. I've been treated very well, Alhamdulillah. But I've been the youngest, being 26 and the youngest amongst every patient in those wards. I've walked the corridors of those wards and I've seen so much elderly people, and that made me realize that COVID does not ask for an age anymore. It attacks whoever it wants. And being as young as I was, being on oxygen, I was never ever hospitalized. So I feared for my life every day, hearing people dying every single day. I feared. And most importantly for me was that I needed to create awareness, especially to our youth, to let them know that this is real. A lot of youth was obviously experiencing the time of partying, celebrations, and enjoying festivities during the December period. And for me, I needed to do something about it because I care, because I was in a situation of life and death. And with tears in my eyes, I actually created that video, walking the corridors, and that was my first time out of the ward, the first time I actually took myself off from oxygen, and I decided that I needed to, walk and loosen up my limbs and not depend on oxygen anymore. And that is when I decided to create that awareness video, and that awareness video went viral. Alhamdulillah, I spent about
video in a second. But what I want to ask you, Kausar, is how did you hear about ivermectin and what happened when you took it, when now you're convinced that ivermectin works?
Yes, surely. So I'm going to get to that part now. I was in hospital for about 8 days, and after my discharge, I actually felt, yes, my chest feels much better. I can breathe on my own, but I'm still facing COVID symptoms on a daily. I was vomiting, had migraines, I was nauseous, I had body pains and jittery feelings constantly. And I said to myself, why am I experiencing the symptoms, still? And one doctor told me it could be post-viral syndrome. But I said, why am I still facing it? I mean, I've been treating myself. I'm taking so much medication. I'm not getting better. And I've done some extensive research amongst some of my friends, and ivermectin has came across Facebook many times, and I decided to look into it, to look into testimonials, to look into positive testimonials and some negative testimonials as well. And with that being said, I actually saw a lot of positive reviews, and with that positive reviews, I checked on where are these people located, and most of these people located is it's across the world. Alhamdulillah, with the mercy of the Almighty, I have gotten hold of this product. I don't have it in my capacity. It was actually neared to me because I was so sick, and a lot of people know me as this bubbly person. This person is full of life, and knowing that I was flat in the bed when they gave me my first dose of ivermectin, I was in the bed. I was flat in the bed. About 2.5 hours later, after taking the first dose of about 1.6 ml under my tongue, straight into the bloodstream, I went to the loo. I had some runny tummies. I think there's no side effects from to date, and this is my 5th day now. To date, I've experienced no side effects whatsoever besides the runny tummy. But I suppose that is just getting rid of toxins and the bacteria. On my 2nd to 3rd day, I have experienced 50% of my current symptoms. I told my mom yesterday was my best day ever. I had no symptoms. I felt like me. I felt like I've been regaining my strength to the person that I used to be. Today is exactly the same. It's just that it's my chest. I still at night it goes a bit close. I have back pains. but that is because I had pneumonia and my voice sometimes goes away, it becomes husky. But ultimately, the symptoms of COVID, what I've been experiencing, the vomiting, all of that has been subsided. And in addition to me taking it being a COVID and pneumonia victim, I've also given it to my mom. I kind of used her as a precautional measure. And with her also, we took at the same time. Um, and she took her dosage when I took my dosage, and we've documented this. And Alhamdulillah, she's perfect. She also experienced the running tummy, but I mean that only lasts about a day or two, and it only happens when you do consume your dosage. Obviously, I watch what I consume, how much I consume, because it can become lethal if you take too much. So I don't take too much. I took my last dosage about, I think yesterday was my last dosage. I won't be taking it again. Like I said, I have no symptoms whatsoever. I would say that this ivermectin does help. However, we do not need to idolize it. We shouldn't say that, this is, the cure. You need to make sure that Allah Ta'ala He is in control of everything. I think if I look at it, people would, start hijacking if you have it. People would go berserk if you have it, because this is now an item that can save my mother, my father, or a cousin, or a close relative. It will create chaos. So we need to be in mind that the Almighty God and Allah and whoever we praise is in control of everything that we do, and we shouldn't idolize this product, but ultimately to create awareness, maybe to put pressure on SAFTA to create more trials and conduct more studies and make this product legal in Cape Town if it's working for people. Like I make mention
I want
in
to
my
get to your
videos.
message for SAPRA, but before I turn the mic over to Dr. Dina Padiachi, my last question for you: why did you decide to do these ivermectin videos, and how have people reacted?
To date, about 2 days ago, I checked. Now it's about 9,300 people viewed it. I have been getting tons and tons of messages asking where to purchase it. They're asking me about how I'm feeling today. They're asking about my recovery, how it is how am I recovering. So people wants to know, and if I can be some people's beacon of hope and create awareness and be, that guinea pig telling you that it's working for me, then I would continue telling people that it's working, and I'll continue to create the awareness if it can save a life or two.
Absolutely. And look, I'm surprised Facebook has not taken down your video yet. You might want to just save it and upload it to another platform. But I want to turn the mic over to Dr. Dina now. Kosa, can I ask you to mute your mic, so if there's any noise in your background, then we wouldn't be able to hear it while we're chatting to Dr. Dina Padiachi. Dr. Padiachi, welcome to This is Africa. Thank you for joining us. You've just listened to what Kausar David, has described of her experience of COVID, of her experience taking ivermectin, and of course these videos that she's done to share with the public her experience in the public interest. What are your thoughts on what she's just shared with us?
Okay, first of all, I want to congratulate you, Palisa, for sticking your neck out, and also Capital Radio for, at least trying to evaluate ivermectin. And that, of course, is the big problem, because it's illegal, as you know, for anybody to take ivermectin without a doctor's supervision. But actually, SAPRA has now made it illegal for me to prescribe ivermectin. Okay, now I want to put that into context. This week on Monday, I lost my cousin to COVID-19. He was 58, and he's Segi Govender from Belito. He was the manager of Tire Track, and he died. And then I lost a very good friend, Clint LeBruyne, who was a lecturer in theology at UKZN this week. And I've got a cousin at the moment in hospital with COVID-19. So this is a very serious matter. And when SAPRA, which is obviously trying to act in our best interests, and because it's not certain of the quality of ivermectin, whether it can really do what it's supposed to do, and whether all the side effects, contraindications, and everything else have been correctly worked out, it's saying that there aren't enough trials done, big enough trials, because they've been small trials. There've been hundreds of people who've been tested with ivermectin very successfully, I must mention. There are about 45 trials at the moment or more on ivermectin. But if you allow me, there's so much to ivermectin that I think the public needs to be aware of. First of all, there was a complete news blackout, a TV news blackout, and it still persists on BBC and CNN. Now, for a medical doctor, I've been a doctor for 43 years. I've never seen a blackout like this on any medical product, never. And that is frightening for me, absolutely frightening, because it shows me how threatened some people feel and the power they have. And yes, little old you and me, and we're going up against this kind of power. So first of all, I want to say I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not going to break the law. I'm not going to take ivermectin myself, and I'm not going to prescribe it, okay? But when I hear a story like Ms. David's, I'm obviously very happy. I just want to go into what ivermectin is and why I had the courage to come onto the show. In 1975, a Japanese scientist called Satoshi Omura discovered that there's this product called ivermectin, and that it can treat parasitic infections. And together with Dr. Campbell, he got together, synthesized this product, and in 1987, from 1987, this product, ivermectin, has been used in people like you and me, for all kinds of parasitic infections, for river blindness, which has been absolutely destroying people, especially in Africa, and billions, and this is not an exaggeration, billions of people have used ivermectin without untoward effects. It is very inexpensive. It is safer than, say, prednisone, which is given all the time to our COVID-19 patients. And it has very little in the way of side effects. Ms. Davids mentioned the diarrhea. That is part of it. You get a bit of itching. Some people have had a bit of itching. And, what has really given me confidence, because we knew as doctors nothing about ivermectin until we were invited, more than 500 of us were invited to a Zoom webinar speaking addressed by Drs. Gill and Dr. Corey. Corey is a pulmonologist and a critical care specialist from Wisconsin, from the university there and at the hospital there. And this man staked his reputation on ivermectin. Now that, if you tell any doctor that a specialist is willing to put his life out there, his career, his reputation for a medication, then he must have some confidence in it. He won't do it otherwise. We investigated further and discovered that another two professors, one won the Nobel Prize for Medicine. His name is Professor Barodi. He's from Australia. And if you go on YouTube, you'll see how he backs my ivermectin, how successful he has been with my ivermectin. Ivermectin was tested by Monash University, and there were in vitro studies with high concentrations of ivermectin. But in vivo, which means in people, it was just as successful, but with very small concentrations. Ms. Davids mentioned 1.6 cc's. We normally give 1.5 cc's. Actually, we don't, but we've been told we can. So that's a tiny amount. You know what I mean? Absolutely infinitesimal amount. But look what it does for people. And, if you go online, you'll hear so many stories like Ms. Davids. But there's still a kind of news blackout where Ms. David's story will not be, on the whole, featured on television, okay, on the SABC, for instance. And that's where it should be. You know what I mean? Because we need to get it across to everybody that we need to analyze ivermectin. Ivermectin is not a panacea. There are people who have died while using ivermectin. So it's not a cure-all, but at least it'll give you more of a fighting chance. And, as doctors, every doctor feels absolutely desperate. Every patient, and Ms. Davids made it very graphic. She made it very clear that there are people dying every day on ventilators and on oxygen. And, some of these lives could have been saved. I mean, I lost Satish Tupilia, a very good friend of mine, to COVID-19. What COVID-19 does is it causes blood clots. So it causes heart attacks and strokes. And then there's long-term COVID effects, which means that this COVID lingers in the body and it actually causes fatigue, long-term fatigue. A lot of doctors have actually had to stop working because of COVID-19. If you go to the BBC, you'll hear accounts from doctors. It's also on YouTube about how they've suffered because of COVID-19. So you don't want to get it, okay? And the best time to take, sorry, can I just finish my thought? I just want to finish my thought. You know, it's important to understand that when this medication, ivermectin, becomes legal, I'm sure it will be eventually, then we must understand that it must be taken early on in the affliction, because that's when it's most effective. And there's a Professor Marik who put it very succinctly. He's from South Africa. He's now at the University of East Virginia. He works in an East Virginia hospital. He's also a critical care specialist and a pulmonologist. And the way he put it, he says, if you want to test whether parachutes work, you don't let 999 people die because you don't give them a parachute, okay? You give everybody a parachute because you know this thing is going to work. So if people can understand that analogy, for me, that was the best analogy ever. So if only people can, the SAPRA can understand this concept, because what SAPRA has done is driven the ivermectin underground. So it's actually put it in the domain of the gangsters. You know, the people now who might bring in fake ivermectin, okay? So it's very dangerous.
We've got about 3 minutes. We've got about 3 minutes to go in the segment.
It's very dangerous to take these tablets, you know?
My question to you, you know, and we've got 3 minutes to go, and I still want to ask Kausar for her message, but how do you feel about the criminalization and the abuse of doctors who are basically living by the Hippocratic Oath?
It's tragic for doctors, absolutely tragic. I never ever thought that this kind of thing would happen, and I just hope sanity will prevail. I just want to say the president has made it very clear that our number one priority is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. The president has said that, and I believe that ivermectin can help in that dealing with that problem and rescuing our economy.
All right. Kausar, what is your message to SAPRA before we close up with Dr. Padiachi's message to the government? Kausar, what is your message to SAPRA?
Let me just unmute you. I might be one of the youngest ones, but if we can get as much visual aid, people can say anything via text message, but people like visual aid. People like you to see, consume something. That is why I consumed it. In front of so much people, and I spoke about it. I spoke about it truthfully. If we can get people that testify that this works, if we can get them as well as the entire family to keep on spreading the awareness, it will create pressure. It will create people to stand and unite together, and we can march. What is my intention is to march. I'd love to march to Parliament. If I can get a bunch of people that's in favor of ivermectin and people that wants it and wants to be unbanned, get us to stand together. Obeying obviously obeying social distance, and with all the precautions that we should follow, and march. Let our voices be heard. We have a constitutional right to health care and proper health care, and if we can do that and stand up to our government, it can put a lot of pressure. I mean, it will hit news, and I think that is what we should do. We should stand together, and we shouldn't fear our government. Our voice needs to be heard. I'm not scared of putting my face out there. I'm not scared of voicing my opinion, and I'm not scared of creating the awareness. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kausar, for that very powerful message. Dr. Dina Padiachi, 60 seconds or less. What is your message to government?
Okay, no one has the right to stop me taking anything that will help me to live. No one. Okay, that's part of the South African Constitution. That's the first thing. Second thing is that the ivermectin is now legally part of the protocol in treatment in Belize, in Peru, in Macedonia, and Bolivia. So it's legal and it's being used. So SAPRA has to understand that it is just about the only government body anywhere in the world that has banned ivermectin. So that will stand against SAPRA for eternity. So SAPRA needs to reconsider its position on a scientific basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, to Dr. Dina Padiachi and Kausar David for joining us on the Agents of Change segment of This is Africa Today. Kausar, of course, a COVID-19 survivor and someone who's used ivermectin successfully and now advocates for it. And of course, Dr. Dina Padiachi, a medical doctor, speaking about his views and why ivermectin should be legalized and why we have the right to use what helps us, the right to help. Thank you for joining us. We will be playing you out with Sweet Child of Mine by Baiju Dharmajan, as well as The Revolution will not be televised by Gil Scott Heron. And when we come back, we'll be talking about tackling racism through writing with three very brave and bright young women. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Email us at onair@capitalradio.co.za. us now on 065 4211 380.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
Ngekhathi zethu bafana thina sasihleli intombi sithi intombi ungibona nje angilali ngilala uthini njengenyoni anginamuzi ngilale emaweni emaweni baba silale 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 emaweni Silale mawe, silale mawe, baba silale mawe, baba silale mawe. Sing. Homeless, homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. Homeless, homeless.
Welcome back to This is Africa on Capital Radio with your host Shabnam Palesa Mohammed, and we are now in the final segment of our show called Unplug the Matrix, and I'm really excited to have three brilliant young women on the show today. Joining us is Shamira Kasim, Timkomile Dlamini, and Jenna Lee Evers. Thank you for joining us on This is Africa.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful to have you on. Shamira, if I can ask you to turn your camera on. I see will be with us yet. Any idea where she is?
No idea.
No idea. All right, well, let's have our conversation. Let's start here, first of all, by saying congratulations to you on having entered this Katrada Foundation anti-racism essay writing competition and having done so well. I think I was there, of course, when the winners were announced, and as you could tell from my reaction, I was quite excited. So congratulations to you. Let's start here. Why did you choose to enter this competition, this essay writing competition? Shamira?
I think as soon as I read the topics, I found that particularly the school topic resonated with me. At the beginning of lockdown, a lot of us had to leave university, and seeing how many people only had access to that education because they were able to stay in a residence really shows that whether it's in schools or whether it's in our tertiary education system, there are so many issues we need to solve. And a lot of that is correlated with race. But I wanted to tell the stories of those who don't necessarily get to share their stories all the time.
Very important. So being that voice, that amplifier in a sense, so people's stories are heard. Jenna, for you, why did you choose to enter this competition?
So at first I wasn't really keen on entering. My mom showed me the poster and I was very intimidated because the age group was huge and I was way at the end. I was 16 when I entered, and it was quite scary. Never done any competitions before in my life. But at the time I saw the topics and I thought there's only like this opportunity doesn't come around that often, and especially with such amazing topics like this that really resonate with me. And my dad always said that if you are passionate about something, you should always give your opinion on it. And I figured, why not give it a shot and let my opinion be heard.
No, I think if more people did that, they'd surprise themselves with what they're able to achieve and the contribution they're able to make to the world. So well done to both of you having entered this particular competition. Take us through a synopsis of your essays, your really brilliant essays. And then after that, we'll talk about how you hope people will be impacted. What do you want people to think, to say, to do? Because obviously you want some impact, some results from your work. It's not just something you want people to read and go away and forget about, right? So Shamira, take us first through a synopsis and then what you hope the impact will be.
So my essay was written in a series of letters addressing different stakeholders in the South African education system. Firstly, addressing students about the issues they may face, both in a public and a private education, and to the parents, because sometimes we underestimate the role that parents play in education. And I think that's very important, specifically in a South African education system. But finally, I address South Africa in that we haven't been able to achieve the goals that the 1976 youth fought for. And it's unfortunate, but we can take control of that narrative. And in doing so, we can provide a better education system for so many youth that have been left behind. I really hope that in reading this, people are able to reflect, but moreover, to take this further in order to address influential people and address people that have the power to change our education system, that have the power
to focus resources into different places in order to give everybody equitable access to education.
Equitable access to education. And of course, the power is as much in the hands of whole society as it is in the hands of public servants, so I'd like to think. Sinkobile, welcome to This is Africa. Okay, I think she's connecting to audio there. Jenna, take us through a synopsis of your essay and how you hope people will be impacted.
So my essay topic was racism, the greatest virus of our time. So I started off by having racism as an intended metaphor. So I compared it to a virus. I explained how it infects people, but it never infects infants. It never is, born with being a racist. Then I got on to explain how it's in a pandemic, such as the one we have been facing, but it's a different pandemic that we've been fighting for years, like apartheid. Then I give examples of powerful Black people who have since passed on. So Breonna Taylor, Colin Skosa, and I started off with the death of George Floyd, which really sort of started off the Black Lives Matter movement, which sort of engined it. And I hope that from my description of his death and how powerful it was, hopefully people take away from that and sort of feel empathetic and have that need to change how Black people are treated, especially by the police brutality, and especially how Black people are viewed in society.
So drawing in that international comparison was so important to make it contextually relevant. Of course, an injury to one is an injury to all, which is why we feel the pain of the Black Lives Matter movement here in South Africa. Sinkobile, can you hear me now? Nope.
Yes, I can.
Welcome to This is Africa. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations to you for having been in the top 3 competition winners of the essay writing competition held by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. So we're going to catch you up a little bit, right? We're going to start with why you entered the competition.
Well, for me, it was a way of indirectly changing someone's life or impacting how they will experience the life at school, because school is that we get exposed to at a very early stage of our lives. So, and we know what happens there can actually affect your whole life and how you see things your whole life. So for me, pointing out what is wrong in that space and trying to find solutions for those problems was like me changing someone's life. So that motivated me to write the essay. And I must say the prizes were quite a motivation.
Some pretty good prizes. I mean, things you can use in your further education and in your career. I think well chosen. Take us through a synopsis, a summary of your essay, Sinkobile, and how you hope people will be impacted.
So there's a concept I learned of last year, which is called class consciousness, and it's related to Marxism or Karl Marx. It is used to define a group of people who gain consciousness or become aware of how things are or how things are going, and then unite to advocate for change. That is what I want people to do or react or be impacted by my essay. I want them to see that there are things that are happening that are not happening the way they should be, like school policies that are not being followed, and then unite to try and change that. And if you read my
All right, I can't hear you right now.
In the second paragraph, I just define concepts. What is
struggling
race?
a bit to hear you there.
What is racism? What is a racist? Because I want people to understand and the areas they are in become.
We've been hear you a little bit in between there. I think it's just the network, but do you want to round up what it is you were saying?
I was saying by the end of my essay, I suggest possible solutions that we could use to solve this racism issue, and I'm hoping that people also come up with solutions because they'll be able to spot it in areas surrounding them, and they will unite to change and become agents of change.
Agents of change. Shamira, how have people reacted to these brilliant essays now that they're online?
Honestly haven't seen very many comments when I went through the comments, but I think from people who've read it and I've spoken to, it's been quite positive. That said, I don't think there's a broad enough space that's been created for greater discussion just yet, and I think that's something we need to work on. But given how many essays were entered into this competition, I think we can all agree that many people agree that it's an important issue, although it might not be our focus in a pandemic where people are losing their lives. But I think it's just as important.
How many essays were there that were entered? Do you know?
If I remember correctly, it was over 600 essays.
Wow, that is amazing. Jenna, have you shared the link to your essay, and how have people reacted?
I have shared it, and my mom shared it to everyone on WhatsApp. And so far, it's been very well received. People I have known since I was a baby have been messaging me, talking to me, congratulating me on winning it, saying, "Oh my word, Jenna, you've grown so much as a writer," and they see how my opinion was brought across in my essay. So far, it's been very well received, especially by my school. I've been congratulated almost every single day since the news came out.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Singobile, what's the reaction been like to your essay? People that are reading it, what are they saying? Oops, I think she's frozen again. We're going to have to come back to that question as soon as this frame unfreezes. But let's go back to the questions that, of course, the next one was for her, Murphy'sville, but we'll come back to her. Shamira, you spoke about the Constitution having protections on paper and the need for a decolonized curriculum. So let's imagine in about 20 years, you are the Minister of Education. How do we decolonize education?
I think something we need to look at quite specifically is placing importance on different subjects. So in subjects like history, placing focus on apartheid, because despite many things being relevant, I think apartheid is something that's particularly relevant and particularly important to a South African student moving forward. But further looking at subjects like life orientation, where we can have a more active approach, equipping teachers with the skills to handle conflict, to handle discussion in a constructive manner, and place a focus on uniting us as a country rather than divisiveness. But further, I think something that's very important is placing a greater focus on home language education. So doing dual education in more home languages while maintaining some level of English to remain globally relevant. So what that does is allows for the heritage, the culture, the language to be preserved and for people to better understand their education, but also to remain globally relevant if they want to go overseas. Further, I think something that's also quite important is resource allocation. So we understand that more resources need to go to schools that currently are underfunded. Or in ECD, we know that a hungry child is not going to learn as effectively. So making sure that those children have access to food, because education is more than just a syllabus.
Education is absolutely, it's much more than a syllabus. It's the ecosystem within which the child is actually learning. I'll tell you what, if you were running for the Minister of Education, you might just have my vote. Jenna, you drew in Black Lives Matter as well as Breonna Taylor. What does Black Lives Matter teach us as South Africans about organizing? And what do you think we as South Africa can teach Black Lives Matter about organizing?
Black Lives Matter, the whole movement wasn't just huge in the US, it was huge globally. And that's not just because of social media, but because of the huge influence the US has on the world. So I feel if one thing South Africa can learn from the US is that it takes one influential person or one person in power to just send a tweet, post something, and that will sort of make something go viral. So we as South Africans should learn how to use social media positively. Something that the Black Lives Matter movement can learn from us is that how to protest peacefully and how to stand together. We as South Africans learn from our vast history of racial oppression and how we protest against it. So I feel like Black Lives Matter should really learn from our history as well as theirs.
Absolutely. Of course, there's all of this intersectionality and so much to learn from each other's struggle and be able to connect to those dots. Stinkobile, you wrote about undocumented racism and policy versus implementation. If you were the head of a school or if a transformation director, what would you do?
Well, what we see on social media is undoubtedly just one of many cases that are really don't really make it to social media or the news. So if I was a principal or a head of a school, I would have transformation workshops where we build our staff and teachers on how to be inclusive, what kind of behavior is racist and all that, because we shouldn't assume that they know, but we should teach them these things so that when they do it, they'll be fully aware and they will be held accountable of their actions. And secondly, I think I would have a free line that students can dial when they experience racism, both students and teachers, and it would specialize on providing counseling for both the racist and the victim of racism, because really it's something in the mind, it's an idea that this race is superior than this other one. So if we attack it from the root, from where the idea originates, then maybe we can finally eliminate it.
I'm sure that both Shamira and Jenna agree that that's a very smart way to approach the racism that we face, well, specifically in the schools. And just one more for you while you were away for a little bit. How have people reacted to your essay now that it's online and people are reading it?
Well, the people who have read it have had quite some positive comments, and they've been encouraging me to continue writing. So I'm hoping I get more opportunities like these ones.
I'm sure you will. I think it's like Jenna was saying earlier, it's a matter of seeing those opportunities and being able to take them. All right, so
yeah,
for all three of you, this question, your thoughts on dismantling economic apartheid, which has very much been exposed especially during COVID-19. And as I always say, the real apartheid is economic. It's the top 1 to 10% against the rest of us. And while we may have political freedom, we certainly don't have socioeconomic freedom as well. So I want to hear your thoughts on how we dismantle economic apartheid. Let's start with Shamira.
I think it's important to acknowledge that the problem isn't only about race. However, in South Africa, our social, economic, and our racial lines are very much correlated. So it's clear that there's a lot to be done, and it's an incredibly complex issue. But if we had to start somewhere, I think education would be a great place to start. I think pushing education towards jobs that we currently have and cannot fill, and towards jobs that we know we will need in the future. So enabling people to then begin earning really well and getting those jobs and building the economic infrastructure that we don't currently have.
All right. Same question for you, Jenna. How do we dismantle economic apartheid? Shamira has spoke to education, so I want you to tackle another aspect. What are your thoughts? How do we dismantle economic apartheid? I think Jenna's frozen there. Sinkobile, if you're with us, how do we dismantle economic apartheid, and does it have anything to do with the land?
This is a very come back.
Continue?
May I continue?
All right, who wants to go next?
Should I
Let's go
commence?
with Nkobile since she started her thoughts. Let's go
Okay.
with her.
Okay, so I think COVID-19 has exposed the economic apparatus in a way that people who were previously disadvantaged are still disadvantaged to this day. You see, they were the first ones to get retrenched from work, or they were the ones who were actually more exposed to the virus because they are the laborers, the factory workers, and they are less benefiting from it. Why is that? It's because they don't have the necessary skills, that the valuable skills that the companies would want to keep, and they don't have the qualifications that would enable them or put them in a more advantaged position. So, in dismantling it, I think it has shown, this situation we're in has shown us the importance of investing in things that will sustain our people in the long run instead of just financial assistance. So I would suggest maybe skills development, and obviously education is that one thing that we all need, and then redistribution of opportunities, because that in that way maybe we will achieve a more equal society.
All right, so skills development and the redistribution of opportunities. Jenna, how do we dismantle economic apartheid? Surely it's got something to do with the redistribution of land, with the mineral resources of our country actually belonging to the people of our country and not to these multinational corporations?
I think you're all completely correct. Economic apartheid has spanned far, far, far back. It's from apartheid originally, and users were divided unequally and making a huge gap between upper class society and those in poverty, creating this vicious poverty-stricken cycle. And that's only been made worse by lack of resources and poor distribution of resources, especially when our resources are being put somewhere else and not being in our own country to those who need it. And I feel like the way to dismantle it would be to focus more on helping our country develop and to distribute it more evenly so that the gap between upper and lower class is more even, and that those who are in the poverty cycle can get out.
All right, certainly some good ideas there from our young leaders. How does it feel? I mean, I know this question wasn't for you, and I was going to ask Busi this question, but how did it feel when you realize, the top three happen to be young girls, happen to be young women? You know what I'm saying? That's going to mean something. Shamira, what did you think about that?
It's incredibly empowering. We often don't see female voices in these spaces, and I think it's incredible to see in the youth specifically that we do have these voices and we do have these opinions, and it's great to see that they're being acknowledged. It's really incredible to see the quality of writing that came out of this as well.
Absolutely. Nkobile, same question, 20 seconds. How did it feel?
Well, I felt
clean sweep.
Okay, I felt like women are really taking the opportunities that they are getting, and I felt like we really have views, and we are trying by all means to aid them in any possible way. So I was like, Aluta, continue.
Woman, to that. Jenna, how did you feel?
Yes.
I feel it's amazing, empowering, and the fact that women in society are often, like, their opinions are often suppressed by the majority, and now that they can see our opinions are out there, three powerful women have strong opinions that are out.
All right, we've lost a little bit of that last part, but we've got about a minute to go very quickly. Where to from here in terms of your writing and your career plans, Shamira?
So I'm currently studying towards computer and electrical engineering. So hopefully in the energy sector, working towards more equitable access towards energy. In terms of writing and activism, trying to be a part of more platforms like this and hopefully achieving the same across.
Fantastic. Nkobile, where to from here?
Well, should an opportunity like this one or any other one that would give me a space to air my views or raise awareness, I would definitely grab that opportunity, even if it means talking to primary school kids